What if the most secure prison in Tennessee wasn't breached by force, but by something far more dangerous? What if love, twisted, forbidden, and relentless, was the real weapon? This isn't a story about a hardened criminal breaking free. This is the story of the man who never should have been locked up, the woman who gave up everything for him, and the one person who stood between them and fate. Jesse Calhoun was serving 17 years at Morrow Ridge Correctional Facility. Official records said armed robbery. But people who knew him, really knew him, said that was a lie. They said Jesse had taken the fall for his older brother, who skipped town the night before the trial. Jesse didn't snitch. Didn't protest. He just took the time like a soldier. But what made Jesse different wasn't his silence. It was his journal. A tattered red notebook he kept tucked under his mattress. Filled with poetry. Letters to no one. And sketches of a woman he claimed he'd never met. Guards called him the artist. Inmates called him crazy. But every evening, same time, he'd sit by the window in cell block D, sketching the same face over and over. No one knew her name. Until she walked in. Her name was Lena Barrett, 29, contracted cleaner, single mother of one, and, on paper, utterly unremarkable. But Lena had a past she never spoke about. Once, she studied architecture at Auburn University. Then came a scandal, a professor, a restraining order. She disappeared from the academic world and re-emerged years later working nights for a state corrections vendor. Scrubbing floors, emptying trash, until she was reassigned to Morrow Ridge. That's when she met Jesse. He never spoke to her, not directly. But she caught him watching her. Not leering. Just studying. Like he already knew her. And one evening, as she emptied a mop bucket near his cell, he slid a folded napkin across the floor. It read, "You have the same eyes I've been drawing for years." And Lena didn't walk away. She whispered, "Then tell me what they've seen." That was the beginning. Her name was Valerie Prescott, 41. Elegant, reclusive, and married to Warden Donald Prescott, a man 17 years her senior with military roots and a mean streak he kept behind polished metals. Valerie taught piano at a local church. But every Friday, she volunteered at the prison's literacy program. Jesse, who had never attended, suddenly signed up. In a matter of weeks, Valerie became captivated by him. He wasn't like the others. He quoted Neruda. He played piano by ear. He remembered things she didn't even realize she'd said. And Lena noticed. Because Lena had begun sneaking Jesse old pencils, paper, and once, a burner phone wrapped in a rubber glove. She'd started falling for him. But so had Valerie. And she had power Lena didn't. The triangle had formed. And someone was about to get hurt. It was slow at first. Valerie brought Jesse books. Jesse wrote letters. Lena left notes in the janitor's closet. Jesse memorized every shift change. He told Lena, "There's a blind spot between hallway 6 and the library annex. Only lasts 14 seconds." She asked, "What would you even do if you got out?" He said, "I'd find a cabin with a piano, and never stop playing." Then he kissed her, between the water heater and the industrial dryer. But 3 days later, Valerie found one of Lena's notes. A torn paper tucked in Jesse's sketchbook. And just like that, love turned into war. Valerie stopped the literacy program. Lena's job was nearly reassigned. And Jesse? Jesse was given 2 choices. "Escape with me," Valerie whispered one night, "or stay and rot with her." Sound effect, cell door slamming, rising heartbeat sound. He said nothing. But his eyes said everything. The escape wasn't cinematic. No explosions. No tunnels. It was architectural. Lena still had her old campus login credentials. Blueprints. Maintenance maps. Air ducts. Over 4 months, Jesse mapped a path behind the old boiler room. Every Monday, he and Valerie met at the chapel, an empty, echoing room with a floorboard that had been rotting since 1987. Lena planted a maintenance request. No one fixed it. Under that floorboard, she left a flashlight, a screwdriver, and a pair of boots with rubber soles. On the night of April 9th, during a fake fire drill triggered from a janitor panel, Jesse made his move. But here's the twist. He wasn't alone. When the cameras glitched at 2:14 a.m., Jesse slid through the annex into the boiler hallway. At 2:15 a.m., Valerie Prescott walked through the staff gate in a long coat and heels. She told the guard she forgot her wedding ring in the office. But when she opened the chapel, Jesse wasn't there. Instead, she found Lena. With the ring. With the blueprint. With the truth. Valerie froze. Then she whispered, "You don't even know what he's capable of." Lena answered, "Neither do you." And that's when the lights cut. 2 women. 1 man. And only one would make it out. What happened next has never been reported. 3 lives crossed in the dark, and only 2 walked away. But the real question isn't how Jesse escaped. It's why. Next, we uncover what Jesse was really after, and who helped cover it up. Do not forget to subscribe to the channel as we unravel further. The prison's internal cameras recorded 97% of the facility every hour. The other 3%? An electrical dead zone known as Sector Delta, an outdated transformer panel from 1979, still waiting for federal replacement funds. That's where the chapel sat. When the power surged and tripped the breaker at 2:17 a.m., it created exactly 2 minutes and 48 seconds of total visual blackout. By 2:20, the backup generator kicked in. And here's what the camera showed next. Valerie Prescott walking down the corridor alone, lip bleeding, blouse torn, holding a keycard. No sign of Lena. No sign of Jesse. Only 1 boot print. A size 12. Rubber sole. Fresh. Leading toward the kitchen loading dock. But here's the strange part. Valerie never reported the fight. She never mentioned Lena. And by sunrise, Jesse Calhoun had disappeared into the Tennessee mountains. A blue Ford Transit van was reported stolen 43 minutes after the escape, only 2 miles from Morrow Ridge. No fingerprints, but the GPS had been disabled with a magnet. 3 days later, a farmer near Cherokee Pass reported an abandoned vehicle hidden under a camo tarp behind his barn. Inside, investigators found a portable burner plate, 3 empty tuna cans, and a broken phone, wiped clean, but tucked under the seat. A receipt for a motel 2 hours south, signed with the name L. Barrett. Dated 2 weeks prior. This wasn't spontaneous. This was premeditated. The sheriff went straight to Lena's apartment. It was empty. No signs of struggle. Only a sketch, tacked to the wall. It was Jesse's drawing of her. And across it, in his handwriting, "Keep driving west." Detectives dug deeper into Valerie's version of the story. She claimed Jesse attacked her. That he forced her to open the chapel gate. That he threatened to kill her if she didn't comply. But there was a problem. The panic button, installed under the altar, had been disabled manually. Someone had cut the wires before the drill was triggered. And the person on duty with access to that panel? Valerie. When questioned, she claimed ignorance. But then something chilling emerged. Sound effect, rewind tape click, distorted audio playback. A partial audio recording from the adjacent records room caught this snippet. Valerie. Don't look at her, Jesse. She's not who you think she is. Jesse. Neither are you. The room fell silent. Someone whispered. Then it's done. 6 weeks after the escape, a letter arrived at the desk of Assistant Warden Glenn Mitchell. No return address. Inside was a single postcard. The front showed a desert highway at sunset. On the back, a hand-drawn piano. No words. Just coordinates. They traced it to a roadside diner in Utah, off I-70. No sign of Jesse. But 2 waitresses remembered a woman, brown hair, glasses, traveling with a quiet man who played piano for tips. They left 2 days before the letter arrived. And when the waitress described the woman's eyes, she said they were soft and looked like they'd been painted. After a closed-door investigation, Valerie Prescott resigned from her volunteer role. Not because of evidence, but because of rumors. That she had helped Jesse. That she had hated Lena. That she'd once told a friend at church, "If I can't have him free, I'd rather see him buried." She disappeared from public view. No charges were filed. But 6 months later, a private investigator, hired by Warden Prescott himself, made a discovery. Buried in a financial report from the prison's maintenance budget was a subcontractor payment. Paid to Barrett Logistics. A fake company. Formed 11 months before the escape. Guess who filed the paperwork? Valerie Prescott. Using her maiden name. The FBI believes Jesse Calhoun crossed into Mexico. They believe Lena Barrett was with him, using forged documents, aided by an inside network of sympathetic ex-offenders. They believe Valerie helped fund the operation. That her jealousy drove her to betrayal. But no one was ever charged. And to this day, the sketch of Lena still hangs in Jesse's abandoned cell. Smeared. Torn. But the eyes? Still watching. Still knowing. Next, we track the clues that lead from a dusty motel in El Paso to a piano bar in Baja, where someone may have slipped up and let a name fall. But remember, in this triangle, love wasn't the only motive. Revenge was waiting, too. We hope you are following through. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button. Now let us dig deeper into the story. One man escaped a maximum security prison without force. 2 women, one in uniform, the other in love, fought for his heart. And when the lights came back on, he was gone. Now, halfway across the country, a trail of receipts, piano chords, and whispered names begins to unravel the truth about Jesse Calhoun and Lena Barrett. But what if Lena isn't who we think she is? What if Jesse was just the beginning, not the plan? 7 months after the escape, a tourist from New Mexico checked into a beachfront villa in Rosarito, Baja California. She wasn't looking for criminals. Just a local place with live music. She found a bar called La Flor Negra. Inside, a man with an old soul played piano in the corner. Soft jazz. Minimal conversation. But something about his hands, elegant, deliberate, caught her attention. The next night, he was gone. But taped to the inside of the bar's piano lid was a single drawing. Torn edges. Faded ink. A woman's face. The tourist snapped a photo. And weeks later, on a true crime message board, it resurfaced. A former CO from Morrow Ridge commented, "That's Jesse's sketch. I'd bet my badge." A local waitress, Maribel Cruz, served drinks at La Flor Negra for 8 years. She recalled the man as quiet, polite, and always watching the door. Said he came in every Tuesday night for exactly 43 minutes. Always played 3 songs. Always paid in pesos. But one night, he brought someone. A woman with short brown hair, dark glasses, and a nervous smile. She wore gloves. And when Maribel accidentally spilled water on her hands, she noticed something odd. The woman had a faded scar across her wrist. When asked her name, the woman paused. Then answered, "Camille." But Maribel remembered that wasn't the name he whispered to her when they danced. He said, "Lena." It was the first time anyone had heard Jesse speak her name aloud. Back in the States, investigators re-examined Lena's background. She had no priors. No warrants. No aliases on record. But when forensic analysts reran her high school yearbook through facial mapping, they found a match. A different name. Camille Renee Ford. She'd changed her identity at 18 after a sealed juvenile case in Alabama. Details were scarce. But whispers from court records said it involved a missing stepfather, a burned farmhouse, and a plea deal that required her to disappear. Which meant Jesse never really knew who Lena was. And neither did Valerie. Money doesn't just vanish. Even in love. A financial analyst hired by the Tennessee Department of Corrections traced 3 suspicious wire transfers. $12,000 to a cash drop location in Arizona. $8,300 to a veterinary clinic in Nevada. $5,000 to a small boat rental in Ensenada, Mexico. All routed through a deceased veteran's pension account. All linked to a fingerprint on an old laptop, discovered in a dumpster behind a motel in Flagstaff. That print? Valerie Prescott. She hadn't given up on Jesse. She was funding the manhunt. While feeding it false leads. She still wanted him. Or maybe, she wanted them both punished. A former DEA contractor working private security along the Baja Coast tipped off Interpol after spotting a couple matching Jesse and Lena's description near Punta Azul. They weren't hiding. They were living. The contractor watched them walk the beach, ride bikes, eat street tacos at a food stand. He followed from a distance. Until one night, he overheard something strange. Lena, now Camille, was arguing with Jesse. "We can't stay forever." "I'm not going back," Jesse snapped. "You don't have to," she said. "But I do." 2 days later, she disappeared. And Jesse? He stayed. He played one last song at La Flor Negra. And this time, he cried. 1 year to the day after Jesse's escape, a letter arrived at the home of Valerie Prescott. Typed. Untraceable. Inside was a photograph. Jesse. Sitting on a rock by the water. Alone. Behind him, a carved piano symbol in the sand. The notes simply said, "He chose music. I chose silence. You chose war." There was no return address. No signature. But Valerie knew who sent it. And that meant Lena was still alive. Somewhere. What is to come next? The truth behind Lena's past comes full circle. And Jesse? He's about to learn that the woman he trusted may be the only one capable of turning him in. Because some love stories aren't written in letters. They're carved in scars. A convicted man disappeared. A cleaner with a hidden past helped him. And a jealous warden's wife paid to find them, but quietly hoped he'd return to her. Now, the couple is split across borders. Jesse lives in Baja, playing piano for strangers. Lena, who we now know as Camille, is gone. But her past isn't. And someone just opened her sealed records. In 2008, a 16-year-old girl named Camille Renee Ford stood before a juvenile court judge in Clay County, Alabama. Her mother was missing. Her stepfather, Mark Eddings, was found unconscious in a burning farmhouse. The official report said arson. The unofficial whispers said abuse. The case was sealed. Camille entered a plea deal. She disappeared into the foster system. 5 years later, she legally changed her name to Lena Barrett and moved to Tennessee under a state relocation program for vulnerable youth. No one ever heard the full story. Until now. A retired social worker came forward, after recognizing Camille's face in an online story about the Baja piano man. She said the girl used to hum lullabies under her breath, draw buildings on napkins, and once told her, "I'll never let anyone lock me in again." Back at Morrow Ridge, maintenance workers finally began clearing the old chapel wing for renovations. Behind the heater duct, they found a rolled-up letter sealed in plastic. Written in Lena's handwriting. "If you find this, I'm already gone. Don't judge me for loving him. He was the first person who ever saw me before I was broken." And then, scribbled in the margin, almost like an afterthought, "If Valerie finds this, tell her he never loved her. Not the way he looked at me when I was sweeping the floor." But here's the twist. Valerie had already read it. Because she was the one who planted it there. She wanted investigators to believe Lena was obsessed. Desperate. But the handwriting analysis confirmed it. The letter was fake. Back in Alabama, a local journalist tracked down someone unexpected, Tyree Ford, Camille's estranged cousin. He hadn't seen her in over a decade. But when shown the sketch Jesse drew, he nodded instantly. That's her. But she didn't draw back then. She designed blueprints, treehouses. She wanted to be an architect until... He paused. Until her stepdad started locking the bedroom door. Tyree handed over an old shoebox filled with Camille's drawings, half-burned, smudged by water damage. One sketch stood out. A piano in a room with no doors. On the corner. "Freedom looks like music." Tyree said something else too. "She's not running from prison. She's running from silence." Meanwhile, Jesse Calhoun was slipping. Locals said he played the same 3 songs every Tuesday, then disappeared into the hills. A tourist claimed he saw Jesse on the porch of an abandoned music school in northern Ensenada, talking to an old man with a scar down his jaw. That man? Darius Calhoun. Jesse's father. A man no one had heard from in 20 years. He was presumed dead. But he wasn't. Darius said something chilling to the tourist. "My son's a good man. But good men don't survive in places that punish loyalty." He also said this. "She left him once. He won't survive if she does it again." Interpol's intelligence unit received a ping from a Colombian border crossing. A woman matching Lena/Camille's profile was seen entering with an expired Canadian passport, registered under Renee Caldwell. Same eyes. Same scar. But traveling alone. When agents raided the safe house listed in her entry form, they found nothing except a photo. Jesse, seated at a piano, playing while Lena stood beside him, smiling softly, holding a folded map in her hand. The back of the photo had a message. "I'll find you again. Just follow the keys." But the map in her hand wasn't a map. It was a blueprint of Morrow Ridge Correctional Facility. Revised, annotated, and signed, LB. Back in Baja, Jesse finally stopped playing. Locals said he burned his sketches, stopped speaking. And every Thursday night, he sat in room 207 of the Hotel Cielo Azul, alone. Until one night, the hotel clerk saw him talking to someone. A woman in a denim jacket. Short curls. A faint scar on her wrist. She was crying. The clerk overheard just one word. "Why?" And Jesse replied, "Because you were never meant to carry the escape." "I was." She dropped the keys on the table. Walked out. And Jesse? He stayed in the room until morning. Then, he was gone again. Hope you are following through this intriguing story. For you to know what surprise is to come, keep listening and do not forget to hit the subscribe button. But down your thoughts so far. And let's hear what you think about the situation. Next, the pieces start fitting together, but not the way anyone expects. Because Valerie Prescott is about to make one last move. And it's not for Jesse. It's to destroy Lena. Because even if you can escape prison, you can't outrun betrayal. 3 weeks after Jesse's last sighting, a sealed federal document landed on the desk of a U.S. Marshal assigned to international fugitives. It had no agency header. Just a symbol, a chess pawn inside a lock. The document read, "Asset 42B in play. Subject, Jesse Calhoun. Objective, containment. Priority, red level clearance." Who issued the order? Marshal Harlan Pike, a former Department of Corrections strategist turned private consultant. He had written protocols for prison transfer operations, inmate psychological profiling, and yes, escape scenarios. But Harlan wasn't just tracking Jesse. He once worked with Valerie Prescott. And the two had history. The romantic kind. After resigning from the prison's board, Valerie moved into a remote farmhouse in North Carolina, left to her by her sister. To most, she was in exile. But behind the curtains, she was still pulling strings. Phone records, discreetly obtained by the marshal's office, showed multiple encrypted calls to a private network in Bogota. One message stood out. "I know where she is. You want your asset back? I want her destroyed first." She wasn't trying to capture Camille. She wanted her reputation erased. Her past leaked. Her face on every screen in America. But why? Because Camille did more than steal Jesse. She uncovered a secret Valerie had buried for years. One that could take both of them down. Meanwhile, Camille, now using the name Renee Caldwell, was spotted in Cartagena, working part-time at a cafe near the harbor. She wore sunglasses. Worked early mornings. Disappeared by sunset. But one day, a man in a suit left a note with her tip. It said, "Room 506. One final chance to end this." She went. What she found wasn't Jesse. It was Harlan Pike. He sat calmly, briefcase open, file folders neatly stacked. One bore her original name. The other, a full dossier on Valerie Prescott's offshore accounts, personal surveillance logs, and a scanned image of the forged letter Valerie planted back at Morrow Ridge. Harlan. You were never the problem. She was. But now you're both liabilities. Camille. What do you want? Harlan. To make you disappear, permanently. Unless you give me Jesse. Camille never flinched. Instead, she reached into her coat and slid an envelope across the table. Inside? A key. Harlan's expression shifted. It was the key to a safe deposit box in San Diego. One Jesse had left behind before his conviction. Camille had never opened it. Not until last month. Inside were 3 things. A full confession Jesse had written for the robbery he never committed. Photographs of the real suspects, his brother, Malcolm, and a police lieutenant. A flashcard, containing audio files. One of those recordings? A conversation between Valerie and a prison contractor, arranging a delayed lockdown on the night of Jesse's escape. She hadn't just helped him. She engineered the perfect opening, and tried to pin it all on Camille when things didn't go her way. That night, Camille made one call. A secure line routed through 6 countries. When Jesse answered, his voice was cracked, distant. Jesse. You shouldn't have called. Camille. They're coming. And they won't stop until one of us is in the ground. Jesse. Then don't run anymore. Camille. So what? We meet in the middle? Jesse. No. We meet where it all began. She knew what he meant. Morrow Ridge. But the prison was being decommissioned. Empty. Forgotten. Unless they planned to use it as a final stage. Harlan Pike believed he had everything he needed. He arranged a sting at a hotel near Morrow Ridge. 3 agents. 2 unmarked SUVs. But Camille never showed. Instead, Valerie did. She arrived uninvited, wearing sunglasses and a red coat. She walked into the room, looked at Harlan, and said, "You didn't think she'd come here? She's smarter than me. Always was." Then she tossed him a folder. Inside? A signed confession. From herself. Valerie had orchestrated more than the escape. She'd paid off a prison guard. She'd falsified maintenance reports. And she'd laundered funds through the prison board's educational trust. Harlan looked up. Confused. Why? She smiled. Because if I can't have Jesse, no one will. And then she walked out. Hours later. The file hit a journalist's inbox. And the story was about to explode. 3 lives. 1 escape. A love triangle fueled by betrayal, loyalty, and secrets buried in blueprints and scars. Now, Jesse Calhoun and Camille Ford returned to where it all began, Morrow Ridge Correctional Facility. But the prison is empty. The cameras are gone. And only one question remains. Was this escape ever about freedom? Or was it about the truth? At 4:17 a.m., under a moonlit sky, a black pickup truck parked outside the rusting gates of Morrow Ridge. 2 figures stepped out. Camille Ford, wearing a dark hoodie and faded jeans. Jesse Calhoun, slightly limping, carrying a rolled-up canvas bag. They didn't speak. They walked through the open yard like shadows revisiting a dream. Inside, the power was cut. Walls were peeling. The chapel door still hung crooked on its hinge. And in the silence, Camille whispered, "This place made us criminals." Jesse answered, "No. It made us honest." They weren't there to hide. They were there to end it. Hidden beneath the chapel floorboards was a metal case Jesse had stashed the night before the escape. Inside, a copy of the blueprint Jesse altered. Audio recordings of Valerie pressuring contractors. A letter from Jesse's brother, Malcolm, admitting guilt for the original robbery. Camille uploaded them all onto a secure public leak server, timed to release in 72 hours. Then she opened her phone. A message blinked back. Ready for upload. Final confirmation? She paused. Jesse asked, "You sure about this?" Camille stared out the chapel window. "We escaped prison. But we never escaped her." She hit confirm. 3 minutes later, headlights cut through the yard. Valerie Prescott. She stepped out of her car, holding a weapon. Silencer attached. She walked calmly through the empty halls of the prison she once ruled, heels clicking with ghost-like precision. In the chapel, she stopped. Jesse and Camille didn't flinch. Valerie raised the weapon. "You ruined everything." Camille stepped forward. "You already did that yourself." Valerie pulled the trigger. Sound effect, click, no shot. The chamber was empty. She looked down. Camille held up the magazine, removed while Valerie was distracted during the drive-in. "You taught me to watch for leverage." Camille handed Valerie a folder. Inside, proof of the offshore accounts, the fake maintenance reports, and a signed confession from a former guard. Jesse said, "We don't need revenge. We need the record set straight." Camille added, "You can walk away now. Or you can stay and watch the world finally see who you really are." Valerie said nothing. Then she smiled. "You're both fools. The system doesn't care who's right." She turned to leave. But outside, 2 unmarked cars were already waiting. U.S. Marshals. Tipped off the moment Camille hit send. 3 weeks later, Valerie was indicted for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and abuse of power. Her trial drew national attention. But she refused to speak. The media turned to Jesse and Camille. They agreed to one interview. One camera. No edits. Camille said, "People thought we were just in love. But sometimes love is the only way people listen." Jesse added, "We didn't run because we were guilty. We ran because the truth had no place to go." They didn't ask for forgiveness. They asked for understanding. 6 months after the interview, Jesse and Camille were spotted one last time. In upstate Oregon. A hiker found an abandoned hunting cabin. Inside, there was nothing but a mattress. A notebook full of sketches. And an upright piano, out of tune but intact. Taped to the keys. A note. "Freedom isn't escape. It's when you stop hiding from what broke you." The case was closed. But the story lived on. In the end, Jesse Calhoun didn't just escape a prison. Camille Ford didn't just rewrite her name. Valerie Prescott didn't just fall from power. They exposed the cracks beneath the justice system, where love, fear, and silence held more power than walls ever could. This was never just a love triangle. It was a battle over truth. And the cost of freedom was everything. Thank you for staying through this gripping story. If you'd like more stories like this, built on betrayal, escape, and truth, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment on what story you'd like next.